Basically, we talk about how to get an aesthetic physique. We talk about how to get aesthetic physique as someone who trained in 3 years with a mid physique, you know what I'm saying? No, this is closer to 2.5 years, been training 2.5 years, but basically like there's so much misinformation on this in the fitness industry. You know, you got like science-based lifters, bro. You got like Try Baby.
Man has no control, even over his own will.
I'm doing all that with the cables and the cuffs and the Bluetooth handles. You got literally Instagram influencers just like making up the craziest exercise possible and like selling you supplements or something. I don't know. The extreme side of bro lifting.
It's basically an 8-hour arm workout.
Have you seen Will Tennyson training at the world's most dangerous gym? Just insane fat. Bro, that is not optimal training, I can tell you that. I think anyone can tell you that by watching that video, that is not optimal training. So first thing we gotta do for this video is define aesthetic physique. You look at all the top physiques, you know, David Lade, Clark Kent, Jeff Side, Jason Bjornson, you know what I'm saying? Like those are like the aesthetic guys, you know what I'm saying? There's like the Lex Little, Gabe Deutsch, Steph, you know, that type of thing. There's 4 main factors. If you look at all of them, 4 factors that they all have in common. Number 1, you got the shoulder to waist ratio, wide shoulders, small waist, you know, that shape. So actually, according to science, I would pull up the study maybe if I feel like it in post, but the ideal is a 1 to 1.6. So the waist, whatever it is, the shoulders are 1.6 times wider than the waist. So you see that's like optimal. That's science. So by achieving, basically this is like wide collarbones, big shoulder muscles, small waist, being lean, low body fat percentage. That brings you to number 2. They all have relatively low body fat percentage, around like 8 to 13, 14, like that's pretty low. Like you can go all the way up to like 20% as a male and still be healthy, but that lower end is usually better for aesthetics. Anything lower than 8, you get into like bodybuilding crap, which is like definitely bodybuilding style, but you can't sustain that unless you're like Jason Bjornson or something like that with crazy genetics. But usually it's 8 to 13, 8 to 12, like that. Number 3 is the face. If you look at all these guys, they're all very handsome, but this is not a looks maxing channel, so I'm not going to talk about it that much. But that's also very important for the aesthetics, you know, especially on social media. Like David Lade would not be as big as he is if he wasn't a good looking guy. That's all I'm saying. Like if you analyze his face. Number 4 is the legs. You have this shape from the shoulder to waist. You want the X frame. I'll put it up. Like I think TNF been talking about this with like C-bum or something. But basically underdeveloped legs will ruin your physique. You need to look like you train your legs.
Show the legs. For what?
You can't just wear pants all the time. That's not how it works. For your training, there are some things that doesn't matter what you say, all of these training types have in common, which is training hard, training consistently, and enjoying your training. That's very important. Without these, no matter how perfect the exercises you're doing, you will not grow as much as you want to. So if you're not enjoying your training hard or consistently, even if you're doing the best workout program in the world, it will not work as well as picking less optimal exercises, but actually enjoying them and training hard. You want to build the physique, you need to understand how it works. Is how muscular hypertrophy works, basically very simply, is mechanical tension, frequency, and recovery. So mechanical tension is when an external like load or torque is applied to the muscle fibers, and when you train it to failure, the fibers can't produce enough force to contract anymore, your muscles failed. So that sends signals to recruit more motor units which move your muscles, which will make them bigger and stronger because strength and size are very closely linked.
Strength and muscle mass like carry over well to each other.
With the frequency, it's about how often you're training each muscle group. So obviously, if you could recover instantly, you'd be training. If you trained for like every waking moment, every single day, you would just get absolutely massive. But that's not how it works, because you'll get too fatigued, and then you're too fatigued, you actually grow less. So that's why you need to space out the frequency and recovery to let yourself sleep, grow, eat, all that. But if you train too infrequently, you won't grow as well. So you want to train as often as possible without getting too much fatigue. So anywhere from 3 to 6 days training, depending like how often you can go to the gym, what you're eating, what level you are with training, so varies, but it really doesn't matter. And recovering, you need rest days, enough food, 8 hours of sleep, including sleep efficiency, which I'm not going to talk about in this video because that'll take too long, and enough calories and protein to let your muscles grow and have enough energy to recover your body. So we're going to talk about the V-taper, the shoulder to waist ratio right now. The best way to achieve that, or the X-frame, is genetics. The size of your collarbones, size of your waist, and your anatomy, your bone structure is the most important thing. But since you can't change this, what you can focus on is the bodybuilding. So the main ones that will get like the V-taper are your shoulders, your lats, your arms, and your abs to get that aesthetic look. Obviously, I'll talk about all the muscles in this video. We'll start off with shoulders. So you got the delts, the 3 main heads, the anterior, lateral, and posterior, or the front, side, and the rear. The main head responsible for like the wide shape is the lateral head, obviously, and that's involved. The main function of them is shoulder abduction. So usually any lateral raise variation, dumbbell, cable, standing, leaning, cuffed, whatever, it'll work. Some will obviously be better than others, but it really doesn't matter which one you pick, as long as you enjoy it. Do some with like a cable with a cuff, because cable will have a better resistance profile, and leaning on a bench, limiting fatigue and increasing stability, which are important. Stability, high stability, low fatigue usually make an exercise good. The front and the rear delt's also important to get that 3D look. The front delt is mostly shoulder flexion, and a lot of people say that everyone's front delt is overdeveloped.
For the most part, everybody's going to have overdeveloped front delts just from, the act of pressing.
And it's not really the case. I mean, my front delts aren't overdeveloped because I don't train them as much as I should. But usually a shoulder press or like a front raise variation will hit your front delts well enough. You can use dumbbells or a machine. Sitting down is probably better for stability and limiting fatigue on your spine. And if you are doing a front raise, the front delts to have the best leverage from 90 degrees to 180 degrees from your shoulder and your torso. So that is probably the best area to train it in. And then you have your rear delts. They're responsible for horizontal abduction and shoulder extension, and used in most pulling exercise, rows, lat pull downs, pull ups, those kind of things. You can really train them easily with a reverse pec tech. You can turn all the way to the side like Jeff Nippard to get the stretch, or you can use a cable variation or something like that. Just make it a single joint exercise to improve it as well, but the reverse pec tech will work. It's I do like the simple ones, dumbbell laterals, the shoulder press if I want on the machine, reverse pec tech, simply because They're probably the easiest variations to set up. Next up, you got your arms. The arms will be split into 3 groups: biceps, triceps, and forearms. The main function of biceps is elbow flexion. So that's like the curling movements, and most curling movements will work. The bicep has 2 heads, the long head and the short head. The long head attaches over the shoulder and the elbow, whereas the short head is just the elbow. So obviously changing shoulder position will affect the growth of the long head. If you see in like preacher curls versus like Bayesian curls. So that's pretty much the biceps. You just pick your favorite bicep exercise, more stable and less fatiguing will probably be more optimal, but it really doesn't matter. And the biceps are a relatively small muscle, but I find personally take longer to recover than the side delts, which are more of a larger muscle. So the size of the muscle doesn't really matter in the recovery, but since my biceps would take longer to recover than my shoulders, I train my shoulders more often than my biceps. Then you have the triceps, which are important for elbow extension, and you can use heaps of exercises. There are triceps used in pressing movements, overhead extensions, push downs, skull crushes, anything where you're extending the elbow. Of the long head of the triceps is also attached to the shoulder, so that will be also involved in shoulder extension. Not a lot compared to the lats and other back muscles. Obviously then this shoulder position will affect the growth of the long head and its activation. So usually overhead positions will activate the long head less. So it'll be better for the other 2 heads, the lateral and the medial head, when in overhead position. Finally, you have forearms. Now your forearms will get trained when you're doing pulling movements, anything holding weights, but usually people use straps. So this could cause your forearms to be a little bit less developed, whereas people skip them anyway, but really it's just wrist flexion, extension, and gripping things. You can train this easily with just a dumbbell doing wrist curls, Sam Solek wrist curls, or even just dead hangs will train your forearms. I'm going to do a really quick segment on abs. Abs, what you need to do is get a low body fat and pick like one exercise is involved in spinal flexion, like leg raises, or I saw Jeff Nippon talking about dragon flags. They are pretty difficult, and that's pretty much all you need for abs: low body fat and then just one movement of spinal flexion. And you really don't need to train your abs that often as much as other body parts. You have your back, including your lats. This huge area of muscles. There's so many muscles in your back, but the main ones are like the traps, which are the ones that pull your shoulder blades back, up and down, and then the lats, which are involved in shoulder extension mostly. So, and also shoulder adduction. The lats have the best leverage when they're right next to you, up to 130 degrees above you. When you're doing pullovers, you don't need to go all the way, but usually you can just train the lats with a pullover, a pull down, a pull up, anything like that, to even Keenan flaps. Anything with that movement of the shoulder will train your lats. And then to build up the mid and upper back with the traps and the rhomboids, you can do a wider grip row with your elbows flared. The more tucked your elbows are, the more it'll train your lats, and the wider it is, the more it'll train your upper back and mid back. You can do any form of row like that, or even a Kelso shrug. That'll build your upper back, and you can even do a standing, like a regular dumbbell shrug for your upper traps. And of course, if your arms get tired before your back, that's why they invented straps. To build the thickness of the back and the lower back, I really like deadlift variations or hinge variations. So you can do Romanian deadlifts, stiff leg deadlifts. If you're training legs, like leg training like that will help build your lower back. Even like the back hyperextension will help. Next up, you have the chest. This chest is like, gets that real like plate of armor physique, especially the upper chest. It helps build the fullness of your physique. So the chest is involved in shoulder flexion, which is the upper chest, extension, which is the lower part of the middle, the other head of the chest, and horizontal adduction. So that's bringing your arm across, bring your arm up and bring your arm down. So obviously pressing, incline press, flat press, there's no reason to really train your lower chest at all. It's not that important, you don't need to do it. But the upper chest is a lot of shoulder flexion, So tucking your arms when you're doing any form of incline pressing, or even a front raise, like sort of like a low to high fly, will work for your upper chest. And for your mid chest, the sternocostal head, you can do a flat press, and regular like pec deck or fly or something like that will work well for the rest of the chest. As I said before, the front delt on a front raise has the best leverage from 90 to 180 degrees, so the upper chest will have better leverage less than 90 degrees. If you are going to do like the low to high flies with the bench, you want to move the bench further away, so as you get higher, the tension drops off because of the angle of the cable. Next up, you got legs. You got legs for quads, hamstrings, glutes, calves, and adductors. Adductors really simple. You get on the adductor machine, the one that closes and just trains the inner thigh. I don't actually have one, so I don't train them, but they will make your legs look thicker. And then next up, we got calves. They're involved in ankle extension. So literally any calf raise will work as long as your knee is straight, and straight legs have been found to have better hypertrophy than bent leg calf raises, and the stretch portion of the exercise has been found to cause more growth than a full range of motion. Jeff Nippard said that one. For the quads, you got knee extension, so it's really simple. Any squat variation, leg press, hack squat, that kind of stuff. The Smith machine bar across your thighs, a regular back squat, and even leg extension will all train your quads well. Hamstring does both knee flexion and hip extension. So doing a lying or seated leg curl along with some hinge variation, RDLs, single leg, stiff leg deadlifts, regular deadlifts. You don't have to do both in the same workout, obviously, but doing both will help grow your hamstrings. And then you have the glutes. Glutes are involved in hip extension and abduction. So you can do the hip abduction machine if you want, or a hip thrust or a hinge movement, which will help extend the hip, which will grow your glutes. Frequency. I talked a little bit at the start of the video, but how often should you train and using what split? I've compiled a list of things, so the number of days you're training and which splits you should be using. Full body, pretty self-explanatory. Train your full body, but you don't need to do every exercise for every muscle thing the whole time, especially if you're doing full body multiple days a week. You don't have to do every single exercise, every single thing. Like, you can make it small, but if you are training less days a week, sticking to compounds probably would be better, as you can get more out of the exercise. Even though it's less optimal, you have less time to train, and so obviously a compound might be better. Upper lower is pretty simple as well. Upper body one day, lower body the other. So legs is basically just lower body. I've heard people be talking about some anterior posterior, which is front and back. I'm not sure how I feel about that one. Or torso limbs. I'm not sure how I feel about torso limbs either. Left, right, that's pretty outlandish. I'll just stick to upper lower. You can do the other 2-day splits if you want instead of upper lower. I'm not really sure why, but you can. If you're training upper lower multiple days a week, you can have an upper A and lower A day, and then upper B, so each day is different. Each upper day is different, but it's still upper body. And then last, I got push-pull legs, which is obviously will be the least frequency of most of it. We'll spread everything across well if you're training lots of days a week. 1 day a week would be full body. 2 days a week, I would also recommend full body. 3 days a week, I would recommend full body or upper lower to get the most frequency. You can even do push-pull legs, but that will reduce your frequency of each muscle group to once a week. 4 days a week, probably upper lower is the best. 5 days a week, you can do upper lower or push-pull legs, or combine them. So upper lower, push-pull legs, or the other way around. 6 days a week, you can do upper lower or push-pull legs. 7 days a week, I mean, you can really do whatever you want at that point. You might get a lot of fatigue with no rest days, but it's up to you. Final part of this video is how many sets or reps should you be doing. Now, most muscles, not all muscles, most muscles will do well with 5 to 20 sets per week. I keep it around 10 to 15 for most muscles, but obviously some will require less work than others, like calves, abs, upper traps, so you don't need as many sets for those. Other muscles will benefit from more sets of training, obviously it'll plateau at a certain point where anything else will be minuscule extra gains or just completely plateau. Now reps is a little bit more iffy. Obviously lower reps will cause less fatigue when you're using a heavier weight, but if you are a beginner, higher reps can be better as you're still learning the movement, and your focus should be on form and not the weight while you're still learning how to do the movements. So obviously a lighter weight with higher reps will benefit you more. So obviously you can experiment whatever you want, do whatever rep range you want. I usually keep it around 4 to 10 depending on the exercise, but that's what I do. And you will get stronger in lower rep ranges, that has been proven. But anyway, that's pretty much the whole video. It's a pretty condensed version of everything to know. I'll put my own personal plan in the comments that you can take, copy, tweak, whatever. But that's the end of the video. New videos every week.